This episode marks the beginning of the Heaven's Arena story arc, and man, I tell you, it is really cool, and just in this first episode, it's got me really pumped. Really pumped. Hunter x Hunter, episode 27, Arrival at the Arena. Well, hello, my brothers and sisters and hunters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review starting a new arc on the awesome and just tantalizing and fight-driven tale of Hunter x Hunter. Now, the last episode was ultimately just a recap episode for recapping the previous 12 episodes, and really was just kind of served as a nice, there was a couple of nice little things that they threw in there as well, kind of hinting at the whole badge thing between Hisoka and Gon, but really ultimately it was just that kind of recap episode. So we know that Gon and Killua from the episode before are moving on to this Heaven's Arena, but we don't really know a whole lot of what it's about. You just know you can train and earn money. So very, very quickly we're dumped right into it, and it's great. We see as they're approaching this huge, gigantic tower, fourth largest building in the world, so many 900 meters tall, whatever, but it's 251 floors. And the way it works out is that you fight to work your way up the floors. You start at floor 1, and then from there, based on how strong or how quickly or how it's more or less, they say they appraise your value, so they more or less see how strong you are and then bump you up to a level from there based on your experience, if you've been there previously and everything else. So very, very cool stuff, and was excited to get into it. So Gon and Killua come in, and Killua tells Gon, he says, listen, he says, you did open that testing gate, right? And Gon says, well, yeah, you know, of course, in part he helped open it, but nonetheless, though, Killua says, it says to him right before he goes into the ring for his first match, he says, all you have to do is push hard. So Gon seems to come up with this new move, because prior to that, we didn't really see a lot that really showed powers or strengths of Gon. We just know that he was very perceptive, good senses, very good smell and sight and everything like that. But anyway, this first dude that comes at him, he dodges his punch and then just boom, comes at him with just an open palm-faced smash right in the chest. They call it a push, but that's really ultimately what it is. It's like an open fist punch is what it is, open hand and a palm smash, you know, or whatever you like to refer to it as. But he knocks this dude clear across the arena into the wall, and they immediately say, dude, all right, we're gonna bump you up. You're going to level 50. They give him his ticket. And every battle that you win, because people wager on these matches, you get money, right? Once you get to level 100 or above, you actually get a room there at the place, because it isn't like, you know, you're gonna fight a match or two, maybe a day, and then obviously then you have a place to sleep and what have you. So Killua goes in, and he just dodges his first guy, gives him this magical knife chop that he does, and puts him out after he hits him with the chop. And they say, okay, you've been here before, you made it to floor 200, we're going to put you at 180. And Killua's like, no, it's cool, I'm taking it easy this time, I'm going to go to level 50. The exchange, though, that Killua and Gon had with each other towards the beginning of the episode when they were sitting waiting to be called was that Killua's been here before when he was 6 years old. His father brought him here, dropped him off with no money, no food, and said, you can't leave or come home or whatever until you reach floor 200. It took this kid 2 years to reach floor 200. So you kind of get an insight into how messed up Killua's life was, right? To just get dumped there at 6 years old and then to say, hey, you got to get to floor 200. So he eventually obviously did get to floor 200, and then he quit and everything else. But he explains to Gon on the way up that that each match that they go up, they get paid more and more money. So eventually, once you're in the hundreds, you're getting like 10 million per match that you're winning, which I don't know exactly how the money in this world translates to it, but if it's anything like yen and that sort of thing, 10 million probably equates to about 100 grand for every $100,000 for every battle you're winning once you're up in the hundreds. So very cool stuff. But once we get to floor 50, we wind up running into this other little martial arts looking kid. He's got his karate uniform on and everything, and his name is Zushi, right? And Zushi is just happy to be in the presence of Killua, because he saw how easily and how handily he defeated his opponent. These two wind up going up against each other, and Killua goes and dodges him and does his knife chop, and everybody, you think that the kid's knocked out, right? Kid winds up getting back up. Now, Killua still gets awarded 2 points for the knockdown, right? And whoever gets to 10 points first, without, of course, knocking each other out or killing each other, I guess, winds up winning the match. But anyway, this kid winds up going, and after he goes and gets knocked down again by Killua, gets right back up, and if you get up before the referee comes to go and kind of count you down that you were down, you don't get any points against you. But this kid winds up going into some kind of really cool technique, and all of a sudden the music plays, and it's everything's purple around him, and you know that some shit's about to go down, that some kind of special move or something special's coming out. So he goes and starts to do something and focus and change his stance. And his master, who we met, was this guy named Wing. He's got a little wire-rimmed glasses, kind of a taller, thinner-looking guy, but that's his master. He yells yells at him, you can't do that, right? Or you don't use Ren, right? And we find out this technique that he's going to use, or this stance, is actually called Ren. We know nothing about it, right? But it definitely is something that catches Killua's eye. And we find out, too, when he's talking to Gon later on, that it catches his eye because he thinks it's similar to, or the same as what his brother Illumi uses, right? A technique that he uses. So he wants to know more about it. Nonetheless, Killua winds up going, and him and Gon wind up, meeting back up, and then, of course, just kind of fighting their way up. And they go from the 50 all the way up into 100 in a matter of just a few days. 5 or 6 matches straight that they wind up winning each with their one hit, going with his push, they call it, and of course the chop from Killua. And it's just kind of cool to see this whole thing going and how everything works out, right? So you know that Killua's just not going to drop that shit about figuring out this technique and this Ren and everything else. So they're fighting, they wind up getting to 100, and then of course they get a room and they're excited. Killua winds up explaining, he says, most people are just so happy to get to 100 that they've got a stable room, they don't want to lose their position. So you need to keep working on pushing forward, and just keep on pushing forward, right? So several more fights go by, they're still kicking ass and taking names, and they get to 150, right? And Killua, this is where you go and you see the immaturity of Killua, who's a very strong character, but you saw him at the end, the 5th and final phase of the Hunter exam, you saw him jealous that Gon was ranked higher than he was, as far as, for that tournament and everything and how the brackets work. And you can kind of see that childish jealousy that he has. He was pissed off. He says that he's kind of irritated because Gon he was worried about him when they first came there. He's made it to 150 without even breaking a sweat hardly. And he said that it took him 2 months to get there when he was, when he was 6. And Gon says, yeah, but you were only 6. And he says, yeah, that's true, but Killua, though, looks at himself and holds himself to such a higher standard. And I mean, even at the beginning, Gon goes and they check him out after the first battle and say, go to level 50. And Killua, they're just like, you know what, go to 180. So you can tell that there's already that difference in power there, but it seems like Killua is very quick to remind Gon about it and try to bring that up and throw it in his face. And then when he doesn't hear praises from everybody about he's the best, he's the strongest, he's undefeatable, and all that other stuff, it seems like then he goes and he shits on or gets angry at the person that then got more praise than he did. So very neat to see that, but I don't know if it's just his nature from the family he comes from and maybe things never being good enough. I mean, after all, his father did dump him off at 6 years old at this frickin' battleground, Heaven's Arena, so the episode was great though, and it winds up really finishing up and concluding with Killua going and talking to Gon about this technique and wanting to find out more about it. He winds up kind of sneaking in and overhearing a conversation between Wing and Zushi, and Wing is saying, you can't use that, this and that. Your goal is to get to the top floor, and then you can use that technique, but not yet, right? You can't concentrate on winning these little battles. You just take it one at a time, and don't worry. If you lose, you lose. If you lose, you get knocked back down. It goes by 10s. So if you're in the 50s and you lose one, you get knocked back down to the 40s. If you win one, you go back up. So you don't lose any money if you lose, but you do lose that status as far as climbing this tower, this Heaven's Arena. So it's a very cool setup. But anyway, the end of it, the episode I thought was cool because Killua and Gon, they go and they talk with Wing. They kind of confront him, and Killua just straight up, first they talk with Zushi, and he asks him about this technique, and he explains about Ren, and it's part of Nen, and Killua and Gon are just like, huh? They have no idea what he's talking about, right? And it's all about these different disciplines of the martial arts, and obviously these techniques that are used within, but the main thing is, and when Wing, the teacher, comes by, when Zushi's teacher Wing comes by, and starts talking to them, because first he goes and he kind of chastises Zushi. He's like, oh, so you know enough to be a teacher now? And he's like, no, master. Anyway, Killua goes and says, listen, I just want to learn this. I want to learn this technique. If you'd teach it to me, I'd be grateful, and I'll take the whole thing. I won't take any shortcuts. I won't try to learn it outside by myself, but I need to know how this works because my brother uses something similar and I need to kind of know what his secrets are, right? So very, very cool episode. Things end off with Wing saying, okay, and he's going to take Killua and apparently Gon under his wing. And then things end off from there, and we assume that that this Heaven's Arena during this arc, they're going to wind up getting trained or taught hopefully by this Wing, and they'll hopefully kind of both evolve and become a little bit stronger with their powers and what have you. So very cool stuff. Also worth noting at this point, they wound up taking out that kind of mid-episode thing that they did where they would want characters would pop up and they would show a word in Japanese and then they would translate it to English to show you what it meant. They took that out, and now it's just a straight-through episode. And then at the end, they do the ending, which is a different outro, a different sequence, which I think was very well done. It's kind of a cool, heavy metal, fast beat they got going. And then afterwards, there's this goofy sort of animated Killua and Gon so-and-so school where they do something similar, but it's just kind of at the end now instead of smack dab in the middle. So all in all, though, a very good episode. I'm very excited about this arc. And the episode question that I have for you, brothers and sisters, is ultimately, what are your thoughts on Heaven's Arena itself? The building, the way the floors work, the 251 floors. Of course, Gon and Killua, you know, Gon says the whole time he was thinking in his head he wanted to make it to the top floor, whereas Killua was just going to basically go to earn some money and do what they could, and then, you know, increase their powers, have Gon get stronger. But then Killua, once he finds out about that run, he's like, I want to go all the way to the top too. But what are your thoughts, I guess, just in general on Heaven's Arena and everything that we've seen it thus far, how the system works, how the payouts work and everything else? Seems kind of cool to me. And if you're a decent fighter, seems like a good way and an easy way to make some money. So let me know what your thoughts are, though, in the comments down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We will look forward to catching all of you in the next one, Nation. Remember to follow me over on Twitter or Facebook, Instagram, even my other channel.